Hello, everyone, and welcome to
Hi!
Okay, Mark, where the microphone is now working. Today, we're here to talk to you about organizations in your games. Now, when you're running a game of D&D, Pathfinder, or really any other tabletop RPG, one of the most common truisms is that it's very difficult to get players to voluntarily join an in-game organization with their characters. Characters are known to be more likely to be lone wolves who maybe at best get along with the rest of their adventuring party and just do whatever the heck they want, and at worst don't even get along with the rest of their adventuring party. That's because of the fact that many players just kind of aren't into the idea of having these societal rules, these organizational restrictions that can control and limit what they're able to do in the game.
Also, when you think about the all the conversations about the GM railroading the players or telling them what their characters have to do, if the characters belong to an organization that has particular expectations of them, then some players can perceive that as, okay, the GM is telling us what we have to do and how we have to do it.
Absolutely. So it can feel like railroading, it can feel like being controlling or taking away agency from players. So, what do you need to fix if you want to get your players to not only be willing to have their characters join organizations, but be eager to join the organizations and be able to connect better to your world and the people that are within that world? Well, what you need to do is make them feel on a fundamental level that connecting to that organization is better for them and for what they want in the game. Now, even the players who just might not even be able to explain to you why they don't want to join the organization, they might not be like, well, I know if I join it, I'm not going to be able to do the things I want. They just might have this feeling of it rubbing them the wrong way. If you want to get those players involved with an organization, use a carrot and not a stick. If you're using a stick being like, well, if you don't join the organization, then something bad will happen to you, that's still going to, they might join it, but they're still going to resent it, and they're going to file that in the, this is why we don't join organizations, we'll be forced to do so.
Well, what does the organization give the PCs that they wouldn't otherwise get? Does it give them resources like money or information or connections? Does it allow them access to a goal that they couldn't otherwise reach? Like, maybe only members of this particular organization are allowed to visit the secret library, or maybe, this organization has magic items that you can't get anywhere else if you belong to them, or maybe this organization has a lot of really excellent leads or a deep information network that the PCs can only tap into if they belong to it.
That's right. Think of a way that the organization can be seen as helping the PCs achieve their goals and doing what they want, or unlocking or opening new opportunities rather than closing off possibilities and opportunities with rules, restrictions, or requirements of what quests the PCs can go on. And to make sure it's opening up doors that your players want, figure out in session 0 the kinds of things that are interesting to your players, and you'll find out what kinds of benefits you want your organizations to offer. Now, the players might wind up joining different organizations from each other, and that's okay. It can actually be really fun, especially if those organizations are not like completely diametrically enemies, but have their own agendas and goals that might conflict slightly while also still pushing the PCs and the players towards the direction that they ultimately want to be moving on. But you can use your knowledge of what the players themselves want and what they say that their characters want to make organizations enticing. Think of organizations as a way to earn rewards in an alternate way from experience or gold. And try your best to make sure that at least at the beginning, when the players are still unsure of the organization, to have it so that the organization causes as few problems or restrictions for the players as possible, while offering many opportunities or benefits so that it's very clear. So that way, even if later the organization's like, okay, but we do have this mandatory quest for you now, or okay, but as a member of this organization that is the Royal Guard, your plan to assassinate the king is not something that the Royal Guard wants to do, or something like that. But hopefully, by the time that they get to that point, they'll have gained so much benefit from the organization that they'll still feel connected to it, even if that means they're like, well, Royal Guard, this king has actually abdicated his responsibility to the kingdom. There have been times in our histories that they've tried to cover up where the Royal Guard has couped the government before. When necessary, it's part of our patriotic duty to the kingdom, and we can place the princess on the throne afterwards because she is the right way for this kingdom. Rather than just being like, oh, well, I leave the Royal Guard. We'll kill them all, too. So it's really important to make a good first impression with your organizations. That also means that even if you think it would be cool to have like a flawed messenger for your organization who shows that the organization is just not just a cardboard cutout, but there are some people who try to follow its ideals but have their own issues. Not the first
messenger they see.
That should probably not be the first person, because they're just going to think that is the whole organization.
But if they see a few messengers beforehand and then they see a flawed messenger, it can be like, okay, this is an issue with this person and not with this organization.
Like, meeting different flawed members are fine, but if you have someone who is sort of the ambassador for this organization in your campaign, recognizing that in the real world, sometimes ambassadors for organizations are pretty flawed and can cause these issues, you know that you want this organization to be, making a good impression. So don't try to get that nuanced unless you are playing with a group that just loves organizations, has already bought in, or where you talk about it in session 0 and you're like, this is a game of grays, and you're going to find that there are unreliable narrators, there's flawed messengers. Never take into account what that one person stands for everything that in the group they're in. Even if you say that, it's still going to make people wary if the flawed messenger is too flawed of the organization that you present.
Yeah, because, anything that you're presenting in an RPG is inherently a simplification. So when all the players have to go off of to establish their perspective is that messenger that you present that's the flawed first messenger, then they're going to think, okay, well, why should I trust this? And that also means that what you're presenting is what their character might know about that organization, and so the character would naturally be like, well, why should I trust this too? So one thing with the organizations too is that you'll see that there is a wide variety in terms of how central and prominent belonging in the organization is to the game. On the one hand, you have things like in Pathfinder Society organized play, where every character is a member of the Pathfinder Society. They are all explorers. They are receiving missions at the beginning of every adventure from a leadership figure within the society.
So
and then
everything you do in the entire campaign is just working for this organization.
Correct.
That's it.
And this is set up in this way in part because the organization has a deliberately broad set of goals and missions that they do, and accepts basically anybody into their membership as long as they can play nice with others. So that there can be a variety of reasons why characters might be drawn to it if they want, any large variety of motivations.
By the way, Pathfinder Society Organized Play shows a way, it kind of uses this same principle that we talk about here, and it started doing so about midway through Pathfinder Society First Edition. At the beginning of Pathfinder Society First Edition, it was just, this was an organization, it's giving you missions, and, you get your money at the end from selling the items you found. But there were a lot of players, if you kind of just played at random pickup groups, who sometimes clearly balked at the fact that they had to be in the Pathfinder Society. And they were, they wanted to play an organized play campaign, and the only one that existed was in the Pathfinder Society, but they would not really follow the rules of explore, report, and cooperate that much. They would, basically be antagonistic towards the authority figures in the organization who gave the missions to the PCs, and they would just kind of do their own thing somewhat throughout the missions. But about halfway through Pathfinder Society First Edition, they added an aspect to it that is sort of related to what we were saying before about giving benefits. Well, another part of that, of the carrots, is sort of bribing by rewarding the players into doing the right thing. And this was when missions that existed in the past were retrofitted with primary and secondary success conditions. And then missions going to the future were given primary and secondary conditions. And in order to get the secondary conditions consistently and gain the maximum rewards, you often needed to figure out, without being told, how you would get that secondary condition. It was usually just by going above and beyond and being a good pathfinder. And if you just followed the very basic principles of the organization and, didn't roll really badly or have extremely bad luck, you were likely to receive it most of the time. Whereas if you didn't, you probably would almost never get it if you just basically did only exactly what they said to do in the most careless possible way. And as a result, and Lynn and I played and ran a lot of Pathfinder Society, I would say that the, random tables that weren't with people we knew before at lodges that we were already in, that I rarely saw people who were really going against the society once they started being bribed with faster access to better items and more rewards by virtue of fitting in.
And the flawed messenger thing we were just talking about definitely goes there too, in terms of with the way that the leaders are presented at the beginning of missions. Making them seem more that they care about the characters and their well-being and aren't just sending them into a death trap, and making them, they're not all perfect people or whatever, but at the very least, setting things up so that you're not expecting a player's reaction to reading that to being like, why am I working with this person again? I don't want to help them. I want to oppose them.
Absolutely. And ultimately, sometimes even if you follow all these principles, you have cool rewards and bribes that you want to give the players, ways that these organizations will help them achieve their goals. You think a likable messenger / ambassador of the organization. Sometimes you're just going to roll a natural one and your player decides they hate this organization and this person, and like Linda said, they just want to oppose them. And you know what? Hopefully you didn't tie the organization so deeply into the campaign that there's no way to salvage this, but you might be able to actually tie the players and their characters to an opposing organization. And be like, okay, well, obviously you hate this group, but their arch enemies are this other group, and the group that you hate is very powerful. They have a lot of influence, but you might be able to do a kind of enemies of my enemies are my friends thing with this other group.
And that's, taking it to the extreme of, we decided after this meeting that we despise and want to oppose this group.
Well, you give that as an example, and it's possible.
But I'm saying, there's also, maybe you're not I want to go against it. Maybe you're just joining that group isn't for me. And then maybe the PCs and that group are going to be heading towards similar goals, but on their own way. And then you can wind up in situations where perhaps sometimes the PCs are working together with members of this group, and other times they're at cross purposes because both the PCs and this group ultimately want something that they can't both have.
So once you've found a way to hook your players into the group using their own goals and desires of the players and their characters to make the group seem attractive to them, what you're going to want to do is give the players a sense of progress within the group. You don't want it to stay stagnant. I mean, you might even be able to let it stay stagnant and have the campaign go okay, where it's they join as trainees in this organization, even when they're super high level, or at the end of the campaign, they're still trainees in the organization. They gain some benefits from being trainees. These are the same ones they've always gained. Maybe the benefits are pretty good, and they're evergreen benefits like double rate of retraining, and I just made one thing up. There's several things that are this is scales as you level up to be good, and that's okay. But what can really get players excited is the idea of an organization reacting to them and their accomplishments by rewarding them, by giving them a reward of progress, whether that be like medals or awards or like little challenge coins that have like a symbol of like the specific thing that they did, little trophies, or legitimate rank advancements that give them authority to now, instead of them getting having the other NPCs being authority figures, they're authority figures, and they can boss around the trainees themselves and gain more of the types of benefits that you already know they liked.
And you can decide how hard-coded you want to make this. I mean, it can be more just like, okay, now you've done this many things and you're able to send people on missions, or it may be something that has more granularity where the PCs have like a reputation tracker with the organization where you're kind of tracking, okay, once you've earned up this many points with the organization, then you unlock this sort of benefit, and then it's a tangible scale that the PCs can see growing.
And you could have a sort of a level up system where the PCs level up with the organization in order to gain more benefits. There's already a system in Game Mastery Guide that I think is also in GM Core. I can never remember which things got removed, that allows you to start your own organizations. And we've had a whole video about that. But it is parallel but fundamentally different when you're joining an existing organization, because you still have that idea of growth and advancement, but instead of the players just kind of creating their own group and just bringing in more people, you are, as the GM, representing this established organization that has history, it has sort of a weight to it in the world, and the players and their characters are learning how to become a part of that organization and moving up through something that already exists rather than building something and making it higher.
And in some ways, you know, you could represent that as a smaller section of the organization that respects and looks up to or follows the PCs.
And you could use the idea of the leadership rules to give an idea of like, well, if they had been building their own, then they would have like 20 people who were in the organization. So maybe that means that if with a roughly equivalent amount of effort, that there's 20 people in this organization who are now under them.
Yeah.
In the one that they've already joined that already existed, who answer to them and who they can sort of get to do things for them. So you could use that as a way of handling it if that is appropriate for the organization that they join. If they've joined an organization that is a little flatter in terms of who can order who around, then you're going to want to think more in terms of prizes, perks, sort of titles, or other ways that real world organizations that can't really give you necessarily this giant hierarchy of leaderships also still show that their gratitude towards the actions and achievements of the
and
members.
Maybe, you know, that, or if you're thinking about like the number of people, maybe it's not, you know, a strict hierarchy where the PCs can directly tell this many people what to do, but maybe it represents more like how many people respect the PCs and might do a favor for them, but then they may be expected to, the PCs may be expected to do a favor for them in return eventually. How many allies could they potentially call upon?
That's right. But notice that we're very much talking here and focusing on what are the benefits. That needs to be the first thing in your mind as you're working with these organizations. To you as the GM, there's major benefits if you get your players to tie themselves to organizations, just because having them become a part of the world can get them engaged with the setting.
It gives you a lot of potential adventure hooks.
But it's easy to get over enthusiastic about that and the benefit to you. So that's why first in your mind, you need to put what is the benefit to the players? How is this organization making them feel like they are valued, like what they have done, their accomplishments are respected? And make sure that the organization is being generally positive about the PCs, unless the PCs are just major screw-ups, in which case maybe that's a different storyline. But there can be interesting storylines that you've seen in books and TV and movies about like those super competent people, but even so their bosses are always saying they're terrible or taking the credit for them or putting them down. And that is an interesting story, but most players might have a boss like that in real life, they
And
do
they don't
not
wanna do
want
that in
to
their free
actually
time,
have in their free time to have this happen to them.
Now, that doesn't mean that you can't present an organization where, say, the PCs have a rival that's being a problem for them. But but then they have plenty of allies, and like generally they're receiving recognition. But then this rival is causing havoc.
Yeah, there can be someone else in the organization causing trouble that the PCs can go up against, but you generally don't want it to be the organization itself or like their bosses or the people who like seem to make up and represent the organization as a whole, because otherwise the players are going to want to leave the organization. They're going to wonder, why am I in here? There's no gratitude for what I do. What's the point?
And then you might start by telling a story more about like, how do I escape this organization that our characters have become trapped in because of ill fortune or what have you.
Which is a perfectly fine adventure if that's what you want to tell. Like a classic pirate adventure is that you've been press ganged onto a pirate crew. Now what are you gonna do? Right? But obviously, if you want to run an adventure about joining organizations, then
you don't want that.
The players thinking this is an adventure about leaving the horrible organization is the exact opposite.
Yes, well, I figured that's kind of like the exception that proves the rule. Is like if you may want to do a horrible organization if escaping the organization is a major problem.
Yes, if the name of your adventure is against the blank, where blank is whatever the organization is that they're in. But as you can see, by focusing on the benefits to the players and things that will make the players and their characters happy that they are in the organization, even if you have to move the needle a bit towards the unrealistic side, especially at the beginning, where it's like in the real world, being a member of an organization has its ups and downs, and you're not guaranteed to have a smooth ride at the beginning of any organization that you join, but in your game life, in the game world, you can tweak that a little. Make sure that they can see the clear benefits before you go into, yes, but secretly the council of directors was being puppeteered by devils all along, or something like that.
I think also that you'll want to have at least one and probably multiple focal characters for that organization that help to represent it, rather than making. There's certainly a lot of use to abstractions of like, here's a system of points that you earn within an organization, or here's like a tracker of your rank. But in order to make it feel alive in the world, you are going to want to have those distinctive NPCs who are the PC's contacts within the organization. It's usually helpful if you have like a small number of ones who are primary contacts, so that it's not like, oh, and there's these hundreds of characters that you're now trying to learn. It's like, okay, we have our primary contact, and we have like our rival, and maybe we have like people, if there's different factions within the organization, having someone who's like, this is the person that represents this faction primarily.
Now, your goal when you're establishing these NPCs is essentially to keep establishing generally friendly NPCs who the PCs interact with until you find at least one that they actually really like to interact with. And hopefully it's the first one that you thought was cool that you were trying to put into that role. But if it isn't, phase that one out. Try some other options. Eventually, if they find someone who clicks with them, it's not even weird that the person who feels that they've clicked with the PCs is the one who wants to keep working with them within the organization. So use that NPC to help ground the PCs within the organization. That way, if there is a devil suborning the head of the organization or other weird things or threats to the organization, once the players have an investment with some of the NPCs that they like, with some of the benefits that they've gained, and they see whether it's a threat from within or a threat from without, of like, yeah, there's an army of demons that are about to attack this organization, then it becomes a threat to the NPCs they cared about. It's a threat to the benefits that they're gaining that they won't be able to gain if the organization is destroyed. And that way, the threat to the organization can become a threat to them.
Yeah.
And so it's like, yeah, there's devils who've taken control of our board of directors. We need to root out those devils, rather than just like, if the first session, it just seems like devils are in control of everybody that they talk to. It's like, yeah, we're not joining this cult. It's terrible.
Yeah, and unless this is going to be something about how you were talking about, how grimdark is your setting, right? Maybe you're in a setting where everyone needs to belong to some organization because those who are on their own just get snapped up, and it's a matter of choosing which one is the least bad for you. In terms of it gives you all of them will give you benefits, but there's drawbacks too. But in many cases, if you are presenting major flaws and corruption within an organization that the PCs belong to, players are naturally going to want to have a part in fixing the problem.
In either fixing the problem or giving up on the organization. So your goal is to make them want to fix the problem. And if that's not your goal, then you probably don't want to introduce major flaws to the organization right now. Because there's not really a good outcome to that other than them being like, I'm still invested, let's fix this flaw. I mean, I guess if you're playing a very, very grimdark setting, which is everything is horrible and horrifically flawed, shrug, I guess so is this organization.
Or our organization is less corrupt than others, but still has XYZ that's wrong.
We sure are less corrupt.
Yeah.
But everybody's really corrupt. I mean, if that's the cynical world you're in, then you can ignore some of this advice, but you'll find that those cynical worlds often have cynical heroes who do not join organizations, even if the idea is that the world is so harsh that you need to. They're like, well, I'll do it on my own because everything's so corrupt. So having exactly one where everything is really corrupt and you also need to join an organization can be tough.
Yeah.
All right, so we've seen what the benefits of organizations are in games and the secret tip. The big one that we've mentioned multiple times throughout here, which is what's in it for them. Make sure the organization is a benefit, it's opening doors, it's getting them what they want, and it is not blocking them away from doing what they want. It's not a no, you can't do that because you're in this organization. It's a yes, and you can even do other things now that you're in the organization.
And the organization then is going to naturally present, when the organization has opponents or rivals or things like that as a whole, those are going to be natural things that the players can oppose. And by having those forces serve as regular opposition, it can strengthen the players' affiliation toward the organization they belong to. Because they'd be like, man, our organization opposes those guys. We've dealt with those guys before. They suck. We're more loyal to our organization because we've dealt with, these people who are constantly causing these issues.
That's right. All right, so that is how to deal with organizations in your game. If you liked it, please like or subscribe, or can hit the join button if you want to support us. Let us know in the comments how organizations have worked or flamed out in your games, or especially if you use our advice from how to fix organizations and you get something really cool that happens in your game, let us know. We're going to have one last vote before we head out here to see what next week's episode is.
So it looks like Kojo said vote for whatever Math Guy says.
And Math Guy has created a... Number 6 is Halloween Build a Monster. So it's going to be 6 Halloween... Build a Halloween.
That'll probably win because Kojo said whatever Math Guy said.
That's right.
But does anyone else have something
Does anyone else have a vote that they're looking for between number 1, building a hazard here on the channel. Number 2, Ask Arcade Mark, Save My Game Q&A. Number 3, GM Tools, Portraying the Ancient. Number 4, Arcade Mark Plays, where we'll play some kind of a game. Number 5, an Eldemon element. Or number 6, Build a Halloween monster.
I mean, it is the right time of year for that.
It certainly is. The Dullahans have come out to haunt the
land of Battle Zoo.
The misty moors of Battle Zoo now that it's Halloween. Or should I say Samhain?
Yes. Well, the reason why bogies were not going to be there, because you had 2 very creepy ancestries.
Honestly, I it's almost impossible to pick between them. I might have even picked bogeys, but Steven was very sure that it was Dullahans that were more Halloween-y. I think they're both really
They're both
Halloween-y.
pretty Halloween-y, yeah.
All right, well, it looks like Build a Halloween Monster has won. So, Thank you everyone for joining us, and I hope the organizations work really well in your game now thanks to this. Take care. We'll see you on Saturday for our next exciting episode of RK Mark, where we're going to be talking about the design of sort of dungeons, islands, and other things that flow like a flow chart, room by room or place by place, in node-based design.